some of the notable issues. The paper was very small until this issue. This issue appeared in August 20th, 1963, and it had a headline, "The Negroes Have Voted." This was about the Watts riots. Everybody, the LA Times, the other publications in the city, were talking about the criminals, and I ran a piece saying the Negroes, that was the conventional term then, we didn't call them blacks at that time, that the Negroes, instead of, since they weren't getting satisfied by the political parties, they went out in the streets and it was a different kind of voting. We ran an issue on Tim Leary's escape from jail. There was people from the Rand Corporation were subscribing to the paper, and they came to me with a story that the Nixon administration had come to them with a secret proposal under what conditions the president could cancel an election. And the Rand Corporation came up with a scenario that if one of the national political conventions were bombed, and it could be blamed on radicals, that then they could put in something like the Patriot Act to shut down the civil liberties in the country and produce martial law. Then I published a story about the Rand Corporation, of course, protecting my informants and so forth. And about 2 months later, a black guy walked into my office, very suave, very well dressed, told me he was a pimp who had been picked up by the police and was now being used as a spy inside of black organizations. And he was hanging around the police department and learned that a group of LAPD were attempting to implement the Rand Corporation scenario. And they were planning to bomb the Republican National Convention in San Diego, blame it on radicals, and introduce martial law. I ran this issue. Will Nixon cancel the 1972 elections? Police informer tells of alleged plan to bomb the Republican Convention and begin military rule. This happened in the United States, and the convention was eventually moved away from San Diego, and that plot didn't come to fruition. Then later on, I'm giving you a brief history of the Free Press, a young man walked into the office and told me about a secret police investigation of some campus police at UCLA who had been robbing students and raping female students on the campus. And I ran this story. I had to be very careful legally because the case hadn't gone to trial yet and was still being investigated. The young man had just given me internal material from the district attorney's office about the investigation. The next week, the same young man walked into my office. It's a long story, the details of it, but walked into my office and gave me a complete list of all the employees of the California Narcotics Bureau, including secretaries, office workers, and the people on the street and they had been involved a couple of weeks previously. The LA Times had reported that some underground narcotics officers had, with a warrant, had gone into an apartment in Whittier, but had gone into the wrong apartment and terrorized the people in the apartment looking for dope dealers. And they fired a weapon, and there was a baby in the apartment above, and the bullet had gone through the ceiling into the apartment. And the LA Times reported this, but didn't report the names and address of the officers involved because they were undercover. Well, this young man came into my office with a Christmas card mailing list, and I produced this issue of the paper. narcotics agents listed there should be no secret police. The people should know the men who are policing their communities. Even the Black Panthers do not propose simply abolishing police departments. Even they recognize the need for peace officers, but their program for community control of police demands that the policemen openly live in the community in which they work so abusive exercise of power can be controlled. Secret police forces are a threat to democratic government. History demonstrates that the secret policeman invariably uses his anonymity to become unaccountable to the people over whom power is exercised. Recently, there have been published stories of abuses of power involving narcotics officers. Many, if not most, narcotics cases are thrown out of court because the officers have violated the constitutional rights of the suspect in conducting illegal searches and seizure. I wrote this article and published on page 5 the names and addresses of 80 undercover narcotics police. And what happened as a result of that, as I understand later on from a history of the Attorney General's office, they shut down the office for 6 weeks trying to find out who had released that information. And they brought me on charge. The state of California sued me for $25 million, and all the employees in the building threatened my printer. My printer told me he wouldn't print me any longer. I went to Europe and bought a big printing plant for $250,000. I put up the stock of the Free Press as security, and the printing plant didn't work. There were 3 installations of that press in the United States, and all of them went bankrupt, including me. So that pulled down the Free Press, which continued to be profitable. And I had this lawsuit against me of $25 million with the sharpest attorneys in the California office against me. The prosecuting attorney later became head of the California Supreme Court. But my case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and I won it. And now it's, of course, a legal crime to publish that list, if anybody did it at this point. But at that time, they charged me with receiving stolen property, and there was no legal law against it. The paper went on for many years. I finally went bankrupt for $3 million because of the lawsuit, which I won. I went on the internet with the Free Press, and this was a full-page article in the Los Angeles Times, March 1996, speaking about my going on the internet with the Free Press, and that's what I did with the Free Press.